There's a story Americans tell ourselves about the Rose Garden. It's where Kennedy walked during the Cuban Missile Crisis, where Reagan announced the fall of the Berlin Wall. Now, it's the Olive Garden. I'm Mike Madrid, and today I want to talk about what happens when nothing is sacred anymore. Donald Trump hasn't just broken norms, he's done to American democracy what corporate restaurant chains did to Italian food. He's stripped it of authenticity, pumped it full of artificial flavor, and served it up to the lowest common denominator with a satisfaction guarantee that requires nothing of you except your presence and your attention. The spaces that once demanded reverence now demand only ratings, and it's destroying something essential about American culture that we may never get back. Let me show you what I mean. Mount Rushmore, July 2020, when a pandemic was raging and Americans died by the thousands, Trump staged a massive nationalist celebration. Military flyovers, fireworks despite fire warnings, a speech that turned those stone faces into a backdrop for culture war grievances. It felt less like a 4th of July and more like what democracy looks like when it's filtered through the aesthetics of professional wrestling. Then there's the Lincoln Memorial. Abraham Lincoln, the man who saved the Union, who freed the enslaved, who wrote the most sublime prose in American political history. Trump turned him into a campaign prop. The man who gave us the better angels of our nature became a backdrop for law and order. And the 2020 Republican convention on the White House lawn during COVID, using federal property, your property, my property, as a campaign set. The Hatch Act crumpled it up like a used napkin. But here's the one that really tells you where we're at. A professional wrestling event planned for Trump's birthday this June at the White House. And it's already forced France, our oldest ally, to reschedule official state business. We haven't just jumped the shark. We've put the shark in a strip mall aquarium and we're charging $12 for parking. Now you might be thinking, okay, this is tacky, it's undignified, but why does it actually matter? Well, here's why. Corporate chain restaurants didn't just give us mediocre food. They gave us a philosophy of experience. They took regional cuisine, things that emerged from specific places, specific histories, specific communities, and turned them into intellectual property. They reverse engineered recipes not for taste, but for reproducibility. They focus grouped every detail until they created spaces that generated maximum revenue with minimum offense. The food isn't Italian, it's Italian-inspired. The atmosphere isn't regional charm, it's a family-friendly dining experience. Everything is in quotes because nothing is real. This is exactly what Trump has done to American civic religion. The Rose Garden isn't a historic space anymore, it's a venue. Mount Rushmore isn't a monument to contemplate its content. The Lincoln Memorial isn't sacred ground, it's a backdrop with good optics. The White House, People's House, isn't a house. It's, quote, a great property, tremendous location, perfect for events. Every sacred space in American life has been strip mined for its brand value, processed through the Trump algorithm. Will it play on TV? Will it trigger the libs? Will it make me look powerful? And it's served back to us as a consumer product. So what's the cost? Well, sacred spaces serve a specific function in human society. They remind us that something exists beyond the transactional, beyond the commercial, beyond our immediate appetites. They demand that we become better versions of ourselves simply by entering them. You don't check your phone at Arlington Cemetery. You don't cheer at Holocaust memorials. You don't treat the tomb of the unknown soldier like a photo opportunity. These aren't arbitrary rules. They're the architecture of meaning. They're how societies signal to themselves, this matters more than you do. When Trump turned the White House lawn into a convention center, when he converted Mount Rushmore into a campaign rally, he didn't just violate norms. He taught Americans nothing is sacred. Everything is a product. All that matters is the spectacle. And here's the thing. Once you've turned the presidency into a reality show, once you've made the White House a venue and a wrestling arena, what exactly do you appeal to when you say you want to call the country to something higher? When Biden stood in the Rose Garden trying to sound presidential, what was he appealing to? A space Trump had already converted into a hometown buffet of American power. The Olive Garden doesn't just serve bad Italian food, it makes actual Italian food harder to appreciate. Once your palate is calibrated to supersized portions and oversalted sauces and the comfort of predictable mediocrity, the real thing, subtle, complex, demanding, it starts to feel pretentious, not worth the effort. And that's what's happening to American civic culture right now. We're losing our capacity to recognize the genuine article. We're losing our taste for it. France rescheduling state business for a wrestling match isn't just absurd. It's a symptom of late-stage democratic decline. It's the moment when international allies start treating American government the way you treat a friend going through a manic episode. Yeah, you'll still take the calls, but you stop expecting coherent conversation. The tragedy is that sacred spaces don't come back once they've been desacralized. You can't unring that bell. The Rose Garden will always now be the place Trump held wrestling matches. Mount Rushmore is always going to be where he threw himself a nationalist birthday while Americans died from COVID. The Lincoln Memorial will always be tainted by the memory of Lincoln's legacy being used to sell authoritarian nostalgia during a Trump campaign effort. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the Olive Garden approach to democracy isn't a bug, it's Trump's feature. Maybe turning everything sacred into everything commercial is exactly how you kill democracy. Not by abolishing it, but by making it so cheap, so accessible, so utterly drained of meaning that nobody can remember why it mattered in the first place. You don't have to burn down the temple. You just have to turn it into a TGI Fridays. And by the time people realize what they've lost, they won't even have the language to describe it anymore. They'll just know they're hungry for something real. And all anyone's serving them is breadsticks. I'm Mike Madrid. If this resonated with you, subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because our democracy depends on people who still remember what the real thing tastes like.